I sat at the corner table during my parents' 40th anniversary party, nervously adjusting my tie while scanning the crowded banquet hall. Everyone seemed happy, especially my parents. Then my older brother Jake grabbed the microphone, tapping it twice. I held my breath. With a grin, he announced, "Let us toast to Mom and Dad for their patience with their second son, the one who dropped out of medical school and still lives in their basement at 35. Everyone laughed and pointed at me. I got furious but forced a smile while my hands shook under the table. For 2 months, I said nothing. Yesterday morning, my phone would not stop ringing. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. Hit that like button. And subscribe to hear how I finally turned the tables on my golden boy brother after years of public humiliation. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Chicago, our parents worked tirelessly to give Jake and me every opportunity they never had. Dad pulled double shifts at the manufacturing plant for 25 years, and Mom took night classes to become a paralegal while raising us. Their singular focus was always education. Nothing made them prouder than saying both their sons would become doctors someday. Jake was 4 years older and set the bar impossibly high. He breezed through school with straight A's, captained the baseball team, and got a full scholarship to Northwestern University. Medical school followed, then a prestigious residency, and by 32 he was a successful orthopedic surgeon. He married Stephanie, his college sweetheart, had 2 perfect children, and bought a 5-bedroom house in an exclusive suburb. Sunday family dinners always featured updates on his latest achievements or charitable work. My parents beamed with pride every time his name was mentioned. Then there was me, Eddie, the second son. I was different from the start. Where Jake was confident and outgoing, I was thoughtful and reserved. Jake excelled at memorization and standardized tests, while I struggled with the traditional education system. It took me 3 attempts to get into medical school, each failure weighing heavier on my parents' shoulders. When I finally got accepted to a program in Boston, everyone believed I had finally found my path. The reality was much different. By my second year, I was having panic attacks before exams. I could not sleep more than 3 hours a night. My hands would shake when performing simple procedures. After a particularly humiliating incident during an anatomy lab, my advisor suggested I might have an undiagnosed learning disability that made medical training especially challenging for me. But all I heard was another excuse for failure. 6 years ago, at 29, I made the hardest decision of my life. I dropped out of medical school. I still remember the silence on the other end of the phone when I told my parents. Dad finally spoke after what felt like an eternity. "Well, maybe you can go back next year when you figure things out." I moved back into my old bedroom in their basement temporarily, just until I found my footing. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and somehow I was still there at 35. My parents never directly asked me to leave, but their disappointed glances said enough. What my family did not know was that I had been quietly building something. My struggles in medical school had revealed a serious gap in educational resources for students with different learning styles. While working part-time at a local pharmacy to pay my parents a modest rent, I spent nights coding an adaptive learning platform specifically for medical students. It used artificial intelligence to identify learning patterns and customize content delivery based on individual needs. The business was making progress, but not enough for me to move out comfortably. Each small milestone felt hollow without my family's support or understanding. Jake had taken to introducing me as his little brother, who was still finding himself after dropping out of med school. The condescension dripped from every word. I ignored the jabs for years, hoping my project would eventually speak for itself. When our parents' 40th anniversary approached, I saw it as an opportunity to finally earn some respect. I volunteered to handle all the arrangements. For 3 months, I coordinated with vendors, created photo montages, and designed a celebration that honored their journey together. I even used most of my savings to book the nicest venue in town, all without taking any credit. The night of the anniversary party, I arrived early to ensure everything was perfect. Mom cried when she saw the beautiful decorations and the slideshow I had created. Dad clapped me on the shoulder and thanked me. For a brief moment, I felt seen. I thought this might be the night they would finally recognize that I had value beyond their narrow definition of success. I could not have been more wrong. The evening started beautifully. The banquet hall glowed with soft lighting that highlighted the cream and gold decorations I had selected to match their original wedding colors. Photos from their 40 years together adorned the walls. I had spent weeks digitizing and restoring old pictures, including honeymoon photos they thought were lost decades ago. Mom looked stunning in her navy blue dress. Dad stood tall in his first new suit in 15 years, which I had helped him pick out. They were surrounded by lifelong friends, extended family, and colleagues. Huad witnessed their journey together. I could see the pride and joy in their eyes as they greeted everyone. I was standing near the gift table when Jake arrived with his picture-perfect family. His son and daughter, dressed in matching outfits, ran to hug their grandparents, while Stephanie handed Mom an expensive-looking gift bag. Jake caught my eye across the room and nodded briefly before joining a group of family friends, immediately becoming the center of attention. Dinner was served at 7, followed by the slideshow I had created. Several people dabbed at their eyes during the presentation, and Dad actually had to take off his glasses to wipe away tears when certain memories appeared on screen. No one knew I had spent countless nights putting it together, tracking down friends from their past to contribute photos and messages. After dessert, it was time for toasts. Several friends spoke about Mom and Dad's unwavering love and commitment. Then Jake stood up and tapped his spoon against his champagne glass. The room quieted as he stepped to the center of the room and took the microphone. "I would like to make a toast to the two most amazing parents anyone could ask for." He began, his voice confident and warm. "For 40 years, they've shown us what true love and commitment mean." People nodded and smiled. I relaxed slightly, thinking he might actually keep things positive for once. But there's something even more impressive than their marriage. Jake continued with a grin. "Their incredible patience. Let us toast to Mom and Dad for their patience with their second son. The one who dropped out of medical school and still lives in their basement at 35. The room erupted in laughter. Heads turned toward me, some people pointing, others trying to hide their amusement behind their napkins. I felt blood rush to my face as every insecurity I had ever felt came flooding back. My years of hard work, my business, my contributions to this very party, all invisible in an instant. I somehow forced my lips into something resembling a smile while my hands shook violently under the table. My water glass tipped over, spilling across the white tablecloth. No one noticed. They were too busy enjoying my humiliation. Jake raised his glass higher. To Mom and Dad for never giving up on either of their sons, even when one of them gave up on himself. More laughter. More pointing. Someone from Dad's side of the family shouted, "Maybe he'll be a doctor yet," and the laughter doubled. I had experienced variations of this moment throughout my life. When Jake won science fairs while I struggled with basic assignments. When he graduated with honors, and I barely passed. When he bought his first house and I moved back to my parents' basement. Each time I told myself it did not matter, that I was on my own path. But something about this public humiliation on a night that was supposed to celebrate our parents broke something inside me. It was not just the words, it was seeing my parents' reaction. Mom tried to hide her embarrassed smile. Dad looked down at his plate, avoiding my eyes. They did not defend me. They never did. After the toasts, I tried to slip out early, claiming a headache. Mom caught me at the door. "You cannot leave yet, Eddie. We still have to cut the cake you ordered." So I stayed, smiling mechanically for photos, accepting sympathetic pats on the back from relatives who whispered things like, "You'll figure it out eventually, or it's never too late to go back to school." None of them had any idea what I was actually working on. Only Aunt Lydia, Mom's older sister, seemed to see through it all. She cornered me by the bathrooms. "That brother of yours has always been a bully dressed in an achiever's clothing," she said quietly. "Your parents are too blinded by his success to see it, but I see you, Eddie. You have a depth he will never understand." Her words were the only thing that got me through the rest of the night. The drive home was silent. I followed my parents' car, watching them chat animatedly about the successful evening. When we arrived, they went straight to bed, tired, but happy. I descended to my basement room and finally let the tears come. For the first time, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of my family's disappointment and Jake's cruelty. For the next 2 months, I declined Sunday dinner invitations. I told my parents I was working on a project that required my full attention. It was not entirely a lie. Something had shifted inside me that night. The humiliation had crystallized into determination. I threw myself into finalizing my learning platform. I skipped meals, worked through nights, refined algorithms, created user interfaces, and developed adaptive assessment tools. I reached out to former classmates who had become doctors, asking them to test the platform. Their feedback was enthusiastic and validating. With a functional prototype ready, I contacted a venture capital firm specializing in educational technology. After my presentation, 2 investors pulled me aside. They did not see a failed medical student. They saw an innovator who had identified a critical need in medical education. Within weeks, I had secured $500,000 in seed funding. I found a small apartment downtown without telling my family and moved out one Tuesday while they were at work. I left a brief note explaining I needed space to focus on a business opportunity. Mom called repeatedly, but I kept conversations short, avoiding details. I was not ready to share my venture until I had something undeniable to show them. The following month, I partnered with a respected medical school to pilot my platform with 20 students who had learning disabilities similar to mine. The results exceeded everyone's expectations, with dramatic improvements in knowledge retention and clinical skills development. Word began spreading through the medical education community. 6 months after the anniversary party, my life changed completely. My app MedAdapt was featured in the Journal of Medical Education as a breakthrough tool for inclusive medical training. The article highlighted how my personal experience as a medical school dropout had informed the innovative approach that was now helping hundreds of struggling students succeed. The morning the journal was published, I received a text from a former medical school classmate who now worked at the same hospital as Jake. "Your brother just saw the article." His face went white. I did not respond. I was too busy handling partnership inquiries from 3 major medical schools and preparing for a presentation at a national education technology conference. The validation of my work was overwhelming after years of feeling like a failure. 2 weeks later, I received the Stevens Innovation Award, which came with a grant of $1 million for further development. The local news picked up the story. During the interview, I spoke candidly about my struggles in medical school, my undiagnosed learning challenges, and how failure had ultimately led to my greatest innovation. I did not mention Jake or my parents by name. I simply said that traditional success metrics had made me feel inadequate for years, but now I understood that my different way of thinking was actually my greatest asset. The day after the interview aired, my phone began ringing constantly. Jake had called 12 times. My parents called twice that number. Friends and relatives I had not heard from in years suddenly wanted to reconnect. I let most calls go to voicemail, focused on preparing for my biggest opportunity, yet an appearance on National Morning America to discuss educational innovation. As I sat in the green room waiting for my segment, I received a text from a former medical school friend. "Everyone at City Hospital is talking about you. They all know you're Jake's brother. Hez not handling it well. Apparently he tried to dismiss your work during rounds, and the chief of medicine called him out for it." I put my phone away as the producer called my name. For 7 minutes on national television, I discussed how educational systems fail different types of learners and how technology could bridge the gap. The host mentioned my experience dropping out of medical school, and I explained how that failure had revealed my true calling. When asked about support systems during difficult times, I chose my words carefully. "Not everyone understands when you step off the traditional path," I said. "Sometimes the people closest to you can be the least supportive because they have specific visions of what success should look like." I had a family member who would publicly mock my choices and situation. That was painful, but ultimately it fueled my determination to succeed on my own terms. I did not name Jake, but I did not have to. Back at City Hospital, his colleagues immediately connected the dots. The golden boy surgeon who had mocked his dropout brother was now watching that same brother revolutionize medical education on national television. According to texts I received later, Jake left work early that day, claiming illness. My parents watched the broadcast too. Mom called immediately afterward, crying. "We had no idea, Eddie. Why did not you tell us what you were working on? I had tried in 100 small ways for years." But they had never really listened. The most surprising call came from the dean of my former medical school. She asked if I would consider speaking to their current students about perseverance and finding alternative paths to contributing to medicine. 6 years after leaving in shame, I was being invited back as a success story. By the time I returned to my apartment that evening, I had received over 300 messages. The most satisfying was an email from one of Jake's colleagues. "Your brother has always portrayed you as the family disappointment. Today, several attendings were discussing your innovation during lunch, and he could not get out of the room fast enough. How the tables have turned. I did not take pleasure in Jake's discomfort. Well, not much. But there was a profound satisfaction in finally being recognized for my strengths rather than my perceived failures. And there was something validating about his colleagues, seeing through the facade he had built at my expense. My new life took shape rapidly after that television appearance. MedAdapt was adopted by 12 medical schools across the country. I hired a team of developers and education specialists. We moved into real offices downtown with my name on the door. Articles referred to me as a visionary in educational technology. Former classmates who had once pitied me now sent messages asking if I was taking investors. 3 months after my television appearance, my parents asked if they could visit my office. I agreed, curious about how they would react to seeing my success firsthand. They arrived looking nervous, out of place in the sleek building. Dad wore the same suit from the anniversary party. Mom clutched her purse tightly as the receptionist greeted them by name. I met them in the lobby and took them on a tour, showing them the development area where 20 people were working on the next version of the platform. In my office, with its view of the city skyline, Mom finally broke down. "We are so sorry, Eddie. We never understood. We thought you were just avoiding real life down in that basement. We had no idea you were building all this." Dad, never one for emotional displays, stood staring at the framed Journal of Medical Education article on my wall. He cleared his throat several times before speaking. "I always thought there was only one path to success. Doctor, lawyer, that sort of thing. I was wrong." He gestured around the office. "This is something to be proud of, son. Their approval should not have mattered anymore. I had proven myself without it." But something long wounded inside me began to heal as I showed them student testimonials from people who, like me, had thought they were failures until they found my program. The conversation inevitably turned to Jake. They told me he had been different since my television appearance. Quieter at family dinners. Less boastful. Had been asking if I was coming for Sunday dinner again. "Hess trying to reach you," Mom said. "He feels terrible about what happened at the anniversary." I had ignored Jake's calls and messages for months. Part of me wanted to maintain that distance permanently, but another part recognized that holding on to anger would only limit my own happiness. After my parents left, I texted Jake. "Coffee tomorrow at 10. Park Cafe on Main." He was waiting when I arrived, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. The confident surgeon seemed diminished somehow, nervously turning his coffee cup in his hands. Our conversation was stilted at first. Small talk about weather and sports. Then he took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology, Eddie. Many apologies, actually. What I said at the anniversary party was cruel. It's been a pattern my whole life, and am only now seeing it." I sat silently, waiting for more than words. Jake ran his hand through his hair. "The truth is, I was always jealous of you. You think differently. You question everything. I just followed the path laid out for me. When you quit med school, part of me was envious that you had the courage to walk away from expectations." "It was not courage," I replied. "It was survival." We talked for 2 hours. He explained how his perfect life was built on constant performance anxiety, how he measured his worth entirely through external validation. I shared how his public humiliation had actually been the catalyst that finally pushed me to fully commit to my own vision. I did not forgive him immediately. Real reconciliation would take time and consistent change. But I did accept his apology, and we agreed to start building a different kind of relationship. The next Sunday dinner was a study in shifted dynamics. My parents asked detailed questions about my business. Jake listened more than he spoke. His children were fascinated by their uncle, who made the cool app that their dad's colleague used to teach medical students. Over the following months, our family found a new balance. My parents visited my office regularly, genuinely interested in my work. Jake and I established boundaries and slowly rebuilt trust. He even helped connect me with medical educators who could benefit from my platform. The greatest healing came through my work with struggling medical students. I started a scholarship and mentorship program specifically for students with learning differences. Twice a month, I spoke with young people who felt just as lost and inadequate as I once had. "You are not broken," I would tell them. "You just process information differently. That difference can become your greatest strength." 1 year after the anniversary party incident, our parents celebrated 41 years together with a smaller gathering. When it came time for toasts, Jake handed the microphone to me. The room went quiet, perhaps, remembering what had happened the previous year. I spoke about our parents' commitment, their work ethic, and the different ways their love had manifested in our lives. Then I turned to Jake. "And thanks to my brother for teaching me that the opinions of others, even those closest to us, can't define our worth. Success isn't measured by degrees or job titles. It's found in creating something meaningful that helps others." Jake raised his glass to me, a gesture of respect that meant more than any words. The journey from that humiliating moment, with my hands shaking under the table, to standing confidently before my family was not just about professional success. It was about learning that validation must come from within, that failure often redirects us to our true path, and that sometimes the people who hurt us most are fighting their own battles with inadequacy. Have you ever had someone underestimate you or publicly humiliate you? How did you respond? Did you use that experience as fuel to prove them wrong, or did it hold you back? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about overcoming obstacles and finding success on your own terms. Thank you for listening. And remember, success is not about meeting others' expectations. It is about creating something true to yourself that makes a difference in the world.